I'm Jonathan Sacerdoti. Khalifa Khalifa, thank you for joining me again. It's a few months since we last spoke, and I wanted to get updates from you after the horrible news coming out of Syria today, specifically with the attacks on the Druze. So, first off, how are you? And can you give me a brief update on what's been going on?
Well, when you ask me how am I, there's the personal answer to that, and I'm in a wreck, to be honest. I have a certain duty, a task that I've been dedicating my life for the past few years, to tell the story of the Druze people, and basically trying to avoid this day. And there's a mixture of feelings once I see uh, what's been going on in the past few days, because those people are facing a massacre. They are facing ruthless, bloodthirsty, hate-driven, anti-Semitic uh, monsters. Basically, I've just seen a video before I joined into your broadcast, and basically a couple of hours ago I published in my Telegram channel a hospital saying that we are surrounded by those people, and see the hospital is packed and jammed with all elderly, small children, and women, kids, and everybody. And a few hours passed, and then I see that those monsters came in and killed everybody in the hospital, executed everybody in the hospital. This is the people that we are dealing with. And now you see the jihad declared against the Druze all over the place, and people keep swarming into Sweida, and they are swarming in knowing that the Israeli aircrafts are trying to protect the Druze community. So they go in houses, and at first, like a few days ago, they used to rob and, spend some time on pure vandalism. Now they skip that. They come with one intent, and is to massacre Druze simply because they are Druze, simply because there are people who wanted a decent life, to have a free speech and a free of belief, to say to the Muslims in Syria, well, we respect you, respect us, let us live and let live. But uh, Jolani just made it clear to the whole world what is he made of and what is his true face. And Trump may be very keen to close a deal fast, but we need to live here with those monsters.
And so, I mean, just to fill anyone in who hasn't been watching as closely over the past 24 hours in particular, we've seen this sharp escalation in violence with the Syrian government forces under Jolani attacking local Druze people. There have been fightbacks from local Druze militia and Israeli air power that's been taking part in what's going on as well. And those developments have centered around Sweida, which is the focal point of Druze population in Syria. And this has really drawn renewed attention both to what's going on in Syria generally, but also to the position and plight of the Druze community there. And as you say, this is happening at a time when the Western world seemed to have been making overtures towards the new regime in Syria. We saw even the British foreign minister deciding to re-engage with Syria now. We've seen the US and even Israel potentially in talks to actually withdraw Israeli troops from southern Syria and make some sort of accord. Obviously, that's looking far less likely, if not impossible, today. And what I want to say is that to many of us who've been discussing this, you and I spoke a few months ago when Gilani's men were actually slaughtering Alawites at that time, and now they've moved on to the Druze. This isn't really surprising, is it? This is a jihadi who put on a suit. To all intents and purposes, you don't get to choose the neighbors and enemies you have to make deals with. But should we have expected this all along, in your opinion?
Well, yeah, and the facts speak to themselves. I've been trying to warn exactly from the same thing, and my logic was very simple. It's not that I have some special forecasting abilities. It's the Druze, and this is what what was trying to say. We're actually living under Julani regime for 15 years. People forget that Julani ruled Idlib for 15 years, and you had small community of Druze people right next to the border with Turkey, which is far north. So it's very isolated group, and it used to um, count like 40 or 50 large thousand people and households. Once Julani came in, this community almost got extinct. They tried to force them to be Muslims. Basically, they tried to kidnap their women, and try to find fixed marriages. Although Druze people, they don't mix with other religion. This is why they hate us so much, because we say, okay, we Druze, we only marry other Jews, and once you have a mixture, so the offspring is not Druze. This is our religion, this is how we believe, and this is how we keep our community, and they simply hate that. And the numbers don't lie. And this is exactly the same thing that's been going all along, because what's so frustrating about it, that the Julani people don't even try to conceal their intents. You see special, like the official forces of the regime going on with ISIS patches and take part of the massacres, and they are filming it. And I've seen a video today of one of those, after killing a Druze fighter, is driving him over with his car, and things that you say, we are in what country we are in, what century we are in. That's a crazy thing. So.
And I mean, I saw the video, obviously, I think it was yesterday, of them forcing this man shaving off his mustache. And then I've heard that today they're going asking people, who's your prophet? And if they reply incorrectly and show that they're Druze, they're killing them. Explain a little bit about how that works in Syria, what the situation is for the Druze there, and the kind of brutality that we're seeing today.
Well, the thing is that I find it very, very easy to picture the picture, but people in the Western world don't really grasp it. How you live in a state that it's not a state, it's a Mad Max country, and you have all those mafias and thugs, and what's common about everybody, that they are very extremist, and this was their environment for 15 years. So you can see that in blink of an eye, you could actually recruit thousands of people in a simple task to go and slaughter citizens, simply because they don't agree with the way you are putting your constitution. They say, okay, you want to live in a Muslim caliphate. That used to work in the 11th century. Now we are in a different place, and we want the way Israel wants. We want to be sovereign country. We want to be equal in rights and in front of the law. That's what we are asking for.
And the answer now is no, this is a religious war. I mean, what we see is ordinary civilians as well joining in with these forces, slaughtering their neighbors, slaughtering other people. As you mentioned, that video that's just come out from the National Hospital in Sweida, absolutely horrific. It was captured by the Syrian government affiliated fighters, and the fighter walks around the hospital filming piles of corpses, blood everywhere. This literally means they invaded the hospital and slaughtered the people inside the hospital. This is the sort of thing that people saw on October the 7th in Israel in the kibbutzim, and now we're seeing it here in Sweida, and purely because they're not Muslim, because they're Druze.
And I don't want to be too much graphic, but people should understand that it's like October 7 on steroids. They are so fueled with such hatred. I'm speaking with the people there. They are, they cut the internet and the electricity from them, to give themselves a free space to basically just go and do whatever they want. And the things that I heard today shook my existence to the soul, knowing that people that basically look like me and you could go and do things like I heard on children in sacred places, on the beheading and all those. I simply can't really grasp that, and I find myself, being reporting on what I'm seeing and just cracking and start to cry, knowing that, oh my God, I'm so lucky that I live in Israel. And I'm so lucky that Israel is now understands the true nature of these people. And I could like show them what is happening over there with all the pain, with all the sorrow, with all the price that we are paying. It's heavy. It's heavy, but I want to believe that hope, we live in the land of hope, and I hope that somehow it's not all pure evil, and there's some hope that something good could come out from that.
I want to ask you specifically about the other phenomenon that I'm reading about and seeing, which is that Druze from Israel. You said, "Thank goodness you live in Israel, where the Druze are well integrated into Israeli society, and also often, as you explained to me last time we spoke, actually contribute enormously in the armed forces and in other parts of public life as well as very loyal citizens." But I've seen Druze from Israel literally storming the border in the north to get into Syria. There's now even reports I've seen of Lebanese Druze attempting to breach the borders with Syria, and the Lebanese army preventing them. And the Israeli army and even police, I think, have been mobilized to try and stop the Israeli Druze from going in, though unsuccessfully. Explain this phenomenon to me, that there are Druze from Israel and Lebanon literally trying to pour into Syria and get to the area of fighting. That is quite an extraordinary thing, again, for people in the West to hear.
Well, yes, we are deeply connected. Some of those people we just met few months ago when they visited Israel, and they are now paying the price of doing this act of coming towards Israel and doing religious pilgrimage, and we all the same human fabric. To be honest, me myself, as as a special forces veteran and someone who is fit to fight, I feel a bit shame that I'm not with those guys now fighting this fight, because this is a stance against pure evil that we as civilized people in all the world. It's not the fight of the Druze people per se. It's all Jews, Druze, Christians, Alawites. They are now tackling the Druze, but they did the same thing with all any other minority, and the ideology is my way or the highway. And when I say my way, is to terrorize you the whole all your life, and you're suburban to me. So the Druze won't yield to that, and they know that we have them, the Druze people here in Israel, even in Lebanon, like we are the same fabric. We see the pictures, and our blood, our heart bleeds just for the images that we see. Nevertheless, the calls and the WhatsApp messages and recordings, and it's intense, and it's been intense, and I could understand. I salute everyone who went, and in I don't know what kind, shape or form, but helped a bit for the Druze community and bring their story, because, and I want to thank you as well, bringing this story, because people should know what is this Syrian regime is.
I mentioned earlier this particular film that struck a lot of people. Obviously, there's quite horrific images, as you've said, of the deaths and the savagery. But I want to discuss it because it's a symbolic point that we saw these jihadist fighters filming each other forcibly shaving the moustaches of Druze men. And I want to know why that's significant. It's connected, I believe, with Sunni Islam and the Salafi practice to shave the moustache and grow the beard. I presume this. I see you have a full beard. We're often familiar with seeing jihadists have the beard without the moustache. So, what is it that we're seeing them doing in those
Simply
situations?
because it's a significant, like it's a symbol that significates the Druze. We do exactly the opposite. Those Salafist jihadists, you'll find them, as you said, with no mustache and a beard. And we, like the mustache, is a symbol of the Druze community. This is something that we are very proud of. So for them shaving our mustaches, they try to humiliate us, to basically affect on our religious differences. Simply aesthetic things seem to be as a crime for those guys, and you will see this, like the official forces of this regime doing those kinds of acts. We've seen them yesterday, and I can't grasp this thing. You see two young soldiers, fighters, criminals, terrorists, whatever you want to call them, and they're humiliating this elderly man, this 89 years old man, shaving his mustache. And today we got the image of him being executed. These are the things that are being done now, and I simply don't have any words to express the sorrow that I feel now.
And I think it's very symbolic as well for Jewish people to see this because we are familiar with this image of religious Jews having their peyot, their long forelocks cut in the Shoah and the Holocaust and at other times, so as a similar form of sort of humiliation, even according to the way that one wears one's hair, that is symbolic of one's heritage and religion and background. So I think that's why it's a chilling sight to see, along with the more obviously quite brutal savagery that's going on with as you say, the beheadings and the killings. Now, I want to ask as well, because I wrote a column about this morning in my column in The Spectator. I wrote about it, and some of the comments, I read the comments that readers leave sometimes. Many of them were grateful to know what was going on, but one or two, as usual, were decidedly anti-Israel, and they echo things that I've seen also coming from Palestinian sources, where they effectively say this is Israeli expansionism. Israel can't hold itself in; it can't hold back. It's trying to invade now in Syria. We saw an Israeli flag being hoisted at one point in some footage that came out from southern Syria today, and they're saying, "Look, it's proof. They're spies. The Druze are spies for Israel. Israel is simply trying to take over." What is the reaction that you have to that?
Well, it doesn't really matter. The Palestinians are keep doing the same tricks, and the people that are anti-Israel will keep repeating the same thing. So you say, okay, well, now they are declaring jihad against the Jews, but on the way in their demonstrations, they shout "Khaybar, Khaybar, ya Yahud," and I wanna relate that to what you previously said about Nazi Germany. I think in my work, I've been for the longest time trying to explain to people about the anti-Semitism in the Arabic world, because there's a bullshit argument, sorry for my French, that says we are Semites ourselves as Arabs, we can't be anti-Semites, and we are anti-Zionists. So that's a BS in a capital letter, okay? Those people are moving with true hatred. And this is why they do the same practices as the Nazis did, because the ideology itself, it's Nazi, it's Islamic supremacy that, it kept them going to the wrong way. They keep doing the wrong paths. Like, and in my disapproval, the world somehow say, okay, if we'll take those terrorists that used to send suicide bombers to kill everybody and, do the mayhem that they did for the past 15 years, we will throw tons of billions on them, then they're gonna be civilized persons. No, you're gonna create monsters with bigger guns, with bigger intentions, and with bigger ego, and we're gonna meet that again. I mean, we've been fighting in Gaza for the longest time, and those people still say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And but by free, they mean free from Jews and Jews. This is what they mean. So we can't go along with that, and we're gonna fight for a right for existence. Even if the whole Muslim world is gonna come against us, we're gonna fight until the last one of us, because we can't live under this Islamist supremacy. No, no way, no chance.
We spoke last time a bit about the Druze heritage and how, generally speaking, the Druze in Syria have historically tried to remain apart from major power struggles, but that during the civil war, they really found themselves increasingly vulnerable, and drawn in really by these jihadist factions. I suppose what we're seeing now is the I don't want to say logical, but the conclusion of what's been going on, especially since the fall of Assad. Um, but what do you see as happening in the future? What could your predictions be after what we've experienced in recent days and in the last 24 hours in particular? What should be the hope? Should we be hoping for the downfall of the current ruling regime? What do you think will happen, and what would you like to see happen?
Well, I will try to cut it in pieces. For the first, I would say it's hard, very much hard, to predict what's going on in the Middle East, because it's such a crazy environment. But we can know, according to those events, what is not. So the Druze will not live under Julani regime, because you can't come and slaughter people and say, hey, now let's pretend that everything was okay, because it's the opposite, and now the whole world is waking up and seeing it as it is. Second of all, the whole rebuilding of Syria, it should be considered, with a larger international community that will say, okay, we're gonna help you rebuild your country, but we need to see first that the ideas of jihad, of building a constitution, the self-determination right, it's all fit with modern civilized parameters, or criteria. So we can't just give them trophies for their jihad, because once they occupy Sweida, and they are occupying it as Israeli proxy in their eyes, simply because the Druze say, okay, we want a part of Israel, we talk to our Druze friends in Israel, they enjoy their lives, we want that as well. So we want some connection with the Israeli state, and that's by itself is a felony in the jihadist eyes that deserves a death sentence. So that's first. The second thing is that we really should push the world and try to address the issue that we have significant large amount of ideology and brainwashed jihadist thieves and thugs and murderers, and they now are trying to build a state. And if we don't help it, it's like, you have 14 years old boy and he's a bit reckless, and then you say, hey, take all my money and all my guns and try to be reasonable about it, but I trust you, it's okay, I know that you're gonna do well with all these guns and all this power and money. And this is basically what the world is doing, and to be honest, it's like a stupid thing to do.
What do you think Israel should do next? I mean, we've seen that there has been Israeli action. Should we have Israeli troops on the ground? Should Israel be stopping the Druze from Israel going into Syria? Obviously, I'm guessing that it's a very fierce battle there because you can't really stand up to the forces that are slaughtering Druze. So, what would you like to see? What do you think will happen now in terms of Israel's involvement?
Well, as an Israeli, the first thing that I want my government is not to be reckless. And this is why it's driving me crazy, because I've been asking the official people, give me a strategy, because we have this case, we're seeing where it's heading. Can you give us an answer what you're doing? And it woke up a bit late to the whole thing. So, as an Israeli, I don't want my country to be reckless. I wanted to work with things in a clear strategic mind and not to be driven by events, and, take its proper position as the mighty force of the region, that it could, change things. This is what we are doing. This is what Benjamin Netanyahu said. We are changing the face of the Middle East, then do it. Okay, so say, for example, demand from Jordan to open the border between Sweida and Jordan on a humanitarian perspective, trying to bring blood to the civilians, medical care and aid, food, electricity, gas, all those humanitarian things, and try to bring some international forces saying, okay, we're not gonna buy it now that the Syrian forces came in and now we have law and order. We've seen your law and order. We don't trust you. We're gonna not gonna trust you until proven otherwise. This is why we should give an international peacemaking force like, UNIFIL or whatever that is, to make sure that this province, as cultural main point or main scale of the Druze community for the past hundreds of years, is something that worth keeping, and we all wanted to keep thriving and living under their beliefs and under their law.
You mentioned there encouraging Jordan to open the border and trying to allow people to seek refuge there. Would you like to see Israel allowing in Druze to take shelter from Syria?
That's a tough question, because, of course, yes, whatever we can help, but in my opinion, in it's not okay to normalize the idea that the Syrian Druze should flee their lands to come to Israel and then seek refuge. We want to strengthen them in their lands, in their base, home base, because we are lacking of men now, fighting men that could, manage the whole province and take care of the Druze people, simply because it's been a living hell live under those circumstances for the past 15 years, and now things got escalated. So, in my opinion, we need to take care of Sweida, and not to try to bring Sweida here so we can take care of it here.
And to be clear then, in a sense, obviously temporary refuge during a time like this is perhaps better sought in a country like Jordan than in Israel, because what we saw when the Syrian Druze came into Israel recently and then went back is they were immediately accused of being Israeli spies. So I suppose the practical nature of them even temporarily seeking refuge in Israel would put them at greater risk if and when they return.
Yeah, the hypocrisy of that is disgusting, to be honest. Every Muslim in the world could go to Mecca and do his religious pilgrimage, and once the Druze take advantage that the oppressor of this community for the past 50 years just gone, and they can feel some freedom and meet their families. It's a family gathering. And even now, like, it's a crime. We paid hundreds of casualties just on this thing, and those people, the facts aside. So it's heads I win, tails you lose. So whatever you do, they will say you're a Jew, you're an affiliate to Israel, you're a Mossad agent. Whatever you do, like it's an excuse to basically murder your 5 years old girls, and this is what they are doing now, and they're beheading babies. Jonathan, I've seen the pictures. I've seen this horrific sceneries, and I simply can't believe that this is a world that we live in and it's just next to us. So October 7, it's a matter of time until we address this issue from the root and say, the world should say, not anymore. We're not gonna yield to this bullshit, no matter if you shout for the name of Allah, of Christ, or for whatever you want. We're not gonna go with that anymore. So that's it.
I'm very grateful for you talking to me about this, because I think it's so important that people do hear this, and that you're very plugged into it. So I appreciate it's very difficult, but I think it's really important. So hope you'll forgive me and my questions, which I guess are provoking more sadness and emotion. When you mentioned before, the possible outcomes that we could hope for, um, it's contrary really to the Druze ideology normally. But I think what you're saying is we need to somehow create some kind of Druze state within Sweida in order to protect the people there, and in order to protect their freedoms there. Is that a viable or realistic aim? I mean, obviously at the moment it's pie in the sky to even think past the end of this week. But is that a realistic aim?
I think that's a necessity. If there's a lesson that we heard and we should learn here is under no circumstances the Druze should live under those people, and not like they're not gonna allow it. They're gonna fight until the last person, but that's not gonna happen. So they must get some sort of sovereignty. The Syrian are very vicious with the Druze because they know that they are the most stubborn, they are the strongest, not the Christians, not the Alawites, not even the Kurds, with all due respect with the Kurds, which is beautiful and brave people, but the Druze kept on the same line, and they tried to talk to Julani and these people, but their intentions are very clear and the directory of it is very clear. We can see where this is where this heading to, and it's a matter of choice. We want to handle things when they are easy to handle, or we're gonna handle them when they are really difficult to handle. Once those people will have, I don't know, chemical weapons, biological weapons, and they will have state and, research labs doing all those things. So now, when the state is very fragile, we should, as worldwide community, say, hey, young state, young being, there's some rules. Going and massacring everybody, that's a rule that we don't do, and nobody's gonna accept for you to do that, and that's a first. Let's start from that.
So I've been seeing in recent hours all these rumors of ceasefires, and obviously they're not happening. And then pleas from the usual quarters, some European countries, for de-escalation and the like. The reality that we're seeing and that you're painting is obviously very harsh and much more real, which is you can't make a ceasefire with people that just did this. You can't imagine that you can make any kind of deal with them where the Druze people will feel safe. So is the effect that we're seeing then that this is the Druze war of independence?
It is. I declared that on April 30. I said this is the first night of the War of Independence of the Druze, and I still see it in this prism. And this is why I think that with all the help and the good intentions that we have here, I guess the world is asking the Druze community in Syria, what do you really want? And now they are finding the powers to achieve that. And in my opinion, that's a sovereign country that will live under the Druze common law of being liberal and democratic country, maybe some sort of a federation in the larger Syria, but they're not gonna allow those Bedouins to, those Bedouins that, because the whole thing started with a fuss between them and the Bedouins, because the Bedouins used to be their best friends, like they share the common geography. And once the thing started on, like, the previous fuss when we talked on April or May, well, sorry, when we didn't talk, but still, it happened on May 1st. So the Bedouin basically betrayed the Druze for the first time. They ambushed the Druze, killing 70 men in this ambush. And those friends, those Bedouin used to be considered as friends. So this is, I think, the most dangerous thing about those Islamists that basically ruined the whole image of Islam in the world. And it says basically you can never trust a Muslim, because these guys, in the second they see that you are weak, they're gonna betray you, and they're gonna justify doing that by saying, yeah, you're not a Muslim, you're a kafir, then I can do that. And the conception of that is disgusting. And so after that happened, those Bedouins started to make checkpoints on the roads, looting, vandalizing people and doing all kind of stuff. And this is how it started, the whole thing. And now the Druze basically is on a mountain that it's like sitting in a sea of those monsters. Sorry for talking in general terms, but this we can see the pictures. Like, it's not some bad apples or something like that. These are masses in a second. The idea that it's in a second you say, okay, today we're gonna go and kill some Jews, and everybody will, now no single person will say, hey, come on, do we really have to do that? Maybe we could have, a discussion, a proper discussion, and meet in the middle, or why everything should be in such way. But it tells a lot about their true intention, their perception of the world, and the world needs to tell them, like, you're wrong. Even if, you know, it's not, it doesn't matter if it's a friend or foe. Like, even if you have a friend and you know that he keeps harming himself because he has those patterns that he keep repeating, those logical inconsistencies, that he will keep falling in the same traps, and you should come and say, hey man, I know that you really wanna bring some honor to Islam. That's not the way, because you're making everybody to hate Islam, to hate this faith, to hate this ideology, and that's not how we want it to be.
I mean, looking at the material that you've been sharing during the day in your Telegram, for example, it seems to me that it's not just al-Jilani's troops, but it's actually many people in Syria. And you've mentioned there that people who, 5 minutes ago might have been living side by side with the Druze have actually suddenly turned on them in that way that is common with other genocides in history, where ordinary people are turning on their neighbors. I saw the video you shared from the home of Sheikh Hikmat al-Hajari, that after they broke in, they sprayed on the walls Zionist agent, because the Druze are being basically turned into this villainous group who are a proxy of Israel, full stop. But as you say, it's any reason, any excuse to effectively slaughter and torture and degrade and diminish the Druze people seems to be valid for everyone. It's not just troops. Am I correct?
Yeah, definitely. And they shouting pig, and they're using. I told you, it's amazing how inspiration they have from Nazi Germany and their ideology and their way of thinking. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. This is how they see us, and it has no connection with fact. It's just pure hatred. Those people are blinded with hatred, They hate themselves. They are willing to kill themselves just for the sake of a sick, fantastic a dream of, having 72 virgins on waters of, I don't know, honey, or I don't know. Is this justifies you doing those things? Like, if you believe in God, you're gonna meet God in one day, and He's gonna ask you, "What kind of person are you?" And you say, "Yeah, I'm very proud. I killed 7 Jews. I beheaded two 9-year-olds twin girls." Or I really can't understand how they are in such a loss that this is what really scares about it. This mass uh, dynamics when once a sheikh or someone who wants to feel like he has a lot of power, you say, okay, Allahu Akbar, and then everybody starts screaming, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. It should be a word of prayer, a word of humbling me meeting a larger being. And you make it this disgusting phrase that everybody hates to hear it and knows that once I hear this shouting, it means that bad things are being done, and this is your culture. I think the Islamist world should come and they should condemn what's happening. Like, yeah, I call MBS, come on, step in and say, we're not gonna agree with that. That's not our way. And the thing is, it's so obvious, exactly like October 7, and that's what really scary about it. Once October 7 started, every 3 years old boy knew what he should do once he sees a Jew. And we try to ignore that. And we are trying to ignore that in a much larger scale with Syria.
Well, I think the point you've hit on there is an important one. It's still politically incorrect to say it in some places, but that's why we must, which is what these attacks have in common is not just their brutality and their savagery, but it's, as you said, the Allahu Akbar that goes with them, and it's the ideology that drives them and is behind them. And for people who see this issue of Palestinianism and Israel being different from Al-Jilani and the Druze, well, they're wrong. The same thing is basically motivating both of these and plenty of other flashpoints of violence around the Middle East and far beyond. And when you said there that you want to hear, other Islamic leaders condemn this in order to break that chain of young children learning that this is what they should do in the name of their religion. It leads me to ask you, who are the allies of the Druze? Obviously, Israel, we know where you are. You're an Israeli Druze, but who else? Who else can the people right now be relying on? Russia, Iran, Jordan, Turkey? Certainly not. What on earth are the Druze people looking for further afield?
Well, I see it that in large, you could say that the whole geographic sphere here, including Israel, could be in large divided to two: those who seek life, like, although life is hard, and yet here we go and we keep bringing life to this existence, and a death cult that all what is they're looking is to look on the life seekers and envy that they don't have their jet planes, they don't have their luxurious cars and things like that. And I don't, I don't want. I'm not happy, but more than that, I don't want you to be happy. So the allies are the people that think otherwise. It's very simple. People that really want decent life, they're eager to get an opportunity to build for themselves such life. The Kurds, the Alawites now, after they gone from Bashar al-Assad, the Christians, speak with a lot of Christians here in the community, and also Sunni Muslims like Jordan, for example, who denounced the Muslim Brotherhood because they know best. Like, it's it's a paradigm shift but it didn't come to Syria now. And in order to come to Syria, we need to hit them hard and kill everybody that is adhering to this ideology, not because we want to kill those people, but we just want to face this thing because they are bullies. And once they, sense some fear or sense some insecurity, they will come seeking for blood. And this is what they are doing now. And this is our reality.
I'm enormously grateful that you've taken the time to talk to me and to tell everyone a bit about what's been going on. And I'm watching constantly myself for news coming out, and your Telegram is very helpful at that, as are plenty of other places. And really, I'm praying for everybody there in Syria caught up in this. And I appreciate all you're doing. Please do keep in touch. Keep me updated. Keep all of us updated. And our prayers are really with the people who are suffering at the moment. Thanks so much, Khalifa.
Thank you, and your praise are much appreciated. And I have a small suggestion, like an ask for everybody who hears us: just pray for the Druze. They are peace-seeking people, and they are facing now such a hard reality, and they are fighting it with brave hearts, with almost no means. And thank God that we have Israel to support them. And your praise are much needed. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for the opportunity as well.